Elijah Wood, you are in, let's just say, a really off-the-wall show on FX that maybe some people don't know too much about. How did you get into Wilfred?
I was sent a script for the pilot sometime last year, and that was my introduction to the show. Basically upon receiving the pilot script, I became aware of the fact that it was based on an Australian show that was created out of that short film. And so I read the pilot script and loved it and fell in love with the characters and found it to be incredibly unique and unlike anything I'd ever seen on television. I then watched some of the videos online because that was kind of the only access to the original show that I had, and did a bit of research as to what that show was about, and just fell in love with it. You know, it was an opportunity to jump into the world of comedy, which was exciting, and also to be a part of a television show that didn't follow a usual structure. That it was kind of a unique way to tell a story, and the relationship was inherently unique because it's based on essentially a character who's mentally going through a difficult time in his life, and as a result of that, there's this character of Wilfred who manifests, and it kind of reminded me of Harvey. I'm a huge fan of Jimmy Stewart's Harvey, and I was really pleased at the notion that Jason Gann, who'd created the character, would be involved in the American iteration. I sort of knew that it would retain the integrity of the original show, so I just sort of fell in love with it.
Were you nervous at all about putting your film career on hold for a little while to do a TV show?
The time commitment was relatively small, and not unlike making a film. I mean, we shot the entire season in 10 weeks, which is kind of an average amount of time for shooting a film. And I don't know, I think the opportunity to work with a network like FX, knowing that we'd have full creative control to make the kind of show that we wanted to make, was really exciting. And it was exciting, the notion of doing television. It was something I'd kind of flirted with in the past, and I was sort of already in the process of looking for something on television, primarily because it's changed so much. The last 5 years, the landscape of television has changed with the quality of writing and directing and the actors that have moved to television, primarily in drama and cable. But it's just extraordinary, and I'm a huge fan of so many of those shows, Breaking Bad, Mad Men, pretty much anything that HBO puts out. So I was actually kind of in the process of just having a look at what was around drama-wise on television, and that's when the script for Wilfred sort of popped up. And it kind of answered a couple of things. One, I was interested in the medium, and two, I was interested in comedy, and I couldn't really pass up an opportunity to work on something that was so strange and outside of the box.
It's such a funny show. It truly is very funny, and Jason Gann does a great job of putting that dry Australian sense of humour across to a new audience. Tell us about working with him, because we get the impression that it's probably a lot of laughs, but you guys are probably working really hard to get this stuff done. But what is it like working with him, and what's it like on set?
It's great. We have a pretty incredible working relationship that was kind of immediate. He sort of describes it that the moment that we met and read together for the first time during the testing phase of getting this going, that it was kind of, he felt really comfortable with me and I felt really comfortable with him. And I think we're both attacking it from a similar place, which is a place of truth. I mean, ultimately, it is a comedy, and at times it has broad comedic and ridiculous comedic elements. But he's always playing the truth of the character, and as am I. And I think we're always seeing eye to eye. It's hilarious. We have a lot of fun making it, but it is a lot of hard work. I mean, we were doing an average of 6 to 8 pages a day.
Wow.
4-day episodes, primarily dialogue. Most of the show is dialogue between Wilfred and Ryan. So we were kind of on our toes quite a lot and working very hard, but it wasn't without laughter. Surprisingly enough, I didn't break that often.
Really?
No, it's kind of amazing. The only time that I really remember breaking and actually being made to laugh and kind of ruining a take was at like the second to last day of shooting.
Wow. He just finally had enough.
Well, it was something that Jason said that was almost kind of benign. It wasn't even one of his more broad, obvious comedic lines. The line was something to the effect of, like, Wilfred was sort of chastened by something that Ryan says. He kind of cuts him off. And his reaction to that was so kind of vulnerable and hilarious that's the one time that I remember actually breaking.
Well, over into quite a few months from now, next summer, when the Emmy voters are voting, I know this is a long way off, but I'm coming around to the question. You'll have to, if you get nominated, you'll have to choose one episode from this season. Is there one episode that really stood out to you from an acting standpoint as you played Ryan that you might think would be good for, to put forward as your best work?
God, that's such an abstract thought. It's not often that one thinks of their own work in terms of, whether or not people are going to recognize it. I don't know. I mean, I suppose the episodes that I'm most proud of are the latter episodes. Yeah. The last two, I would say the final episode is, in terms of what the character goes through, the change that occurs, because Ryan, for the most part during the season, Ryan is just trying to keep his head above water and maintain a place of sanity in the face of Wilfred sort of constantly pulling him in various directions. And the last episode, a shift occurs where Ryan actually decides to go back to that place that he was, that actually got him to this sort of mental breakdown in the first place, which was to sort of access this dark side of his personality and utilize manipulation to get where he wants, which is what he was doing as a lawyer. And so playing that shift of character and the kind of duality of Ryan in that moment, and then also having to endure the loss when he realizes that he may have lost Wilfred and potentially everything was in his head, was a lot of fun to play with. And probably the most dynamic for what the character goes through.
Well, Elijah, we ask you that kind of question because we're an awards website, and it's what we generally like to talk about. And in a month or two, we will start looking at Globes and SAGs and things like that. And we honestly think that you and the show have a very, very good chance to be recognised by the Hollywood Foreign Press in a couple of months. What would it mean to you to be up in that room with all those amazing actors being recognised for your first season?
It would be incredibly surreal.
Yeah.
It would be incredibly surreal. Look, I mean, to have taken an opportunity like this to work within the television medium on something I really believe in, but also something that we didn't necessarily imagine would find its audience as quickly as it has. Look, to be recognized for it would be extraordinary, but it would definitely take me by surprise because it all feels, the show and the experience of making it and ultimately it being recognized all feels incredibly fresh and new to me. So the notion of being recognized for a performance within that medium already is, I don't know, it'd be incredibly surreal, but it would be an absolute honor.
You're no stranger to the Golden Globes and the SAG Awards either. You had that whole circuit there for years where you had the Lord of the Rings going, and you presented a couple of times on those. What was that experience like when you were on that award circuit there for that 3-year run?
It was wild. I think that entire time was it was pretty incredible. It was a 3-year run, really, as each film of the Lord of the Rings series was released. But with each consequent sort of awards season and also the sort of press junketing that we would do, it was also in companion to the fact that we were going back to New Zealand every year during those years to continue working on the films. Mm-hmm. So it felt like this massive family was continuing to work, but then also traveling the world together. And I think that the awards element of it felt very much in that same part of that same experience. Mm-hmm. I think we all felt that it being recognized was kind of our family being recognized in a way. And it was extraordinary. Look, we believed in the movies, and more than anything, I think we just supported Peter and all of the incredible artisans that were a part of making those films and bringing that vision to life. So we were extremely proud to be helping that, along throughout all of the various award shows that we went to, and to see it get recognized was extraordinary. And I think it's something that we all felt as a team, because it felt like a family making it. I don't think any one person felt that they could take ownership over it. It felt very much like an ensemble and a massive family. And I think back to, the Oscars, and when we kind of won all of those awards and swept the Oscars like we did, it was extraordinary more for us to be sitting there with all of the people that we made the movie with, together in that room, and to see them all one by one get up on stage was unforgettable.
Yeah, I remember it really clearly watching the show and having you guys in the audience, and you could just see it was the joy on the faces of all of you. It was it was one of the highlights of that whole thing. That the whole Lord of the Rings juggernaut in that final year when you guys just won it all. That was pretty impressive, pretty special, and now you're about to embark on the next I guess chapter in that whole thing, and you must be terribly excited.
I am. Yeah, I'm so excited. So excited at the opportunity to go back to New Zealand, and it's incredibly surreal because it's a story that occurs before the time period of Lord of the Rings, but it's very much in that same world. A lot of the same people that were involved in making Lord of the Rings are involved, both from a cast side and also on the creative side. So I'm very much looking forward to going back to New Zealand. It kind of feels like a giant family reunion. It'll be wonderful. And I'm also, just as a fan, very much looking forward to seeing The Hobbit come to life. I mean, The Hobbit was the first book of Tolkien's that I was introduced to as a kid, and fell in love with that world. So, I'm excited to see what Peter does with this world, and as I'm sure everyone else is.
Even though you were just starting out, one of my favorite films of all time, maybe in my top 5, is Avalon. That's just such an incredible movie. Did you have fun as a kid working on that movie?
Oh, yeah. I have great memories of working on that film. I was only 8 when I made that film. But it still remains one of my favorites as well, and I think it's one of my favorite Barry Levinson films still. It was a wonderful experience. Working with that cast was extraordinary. It was really the first time as an actor that I had the responsibility of a character that was more than just a small piece of the film. I mean, that character in some ways was Barry Levinson as a child. There's something of an autobiographical element to the character, and that was something I was aware of. And it was really the first time that I had a role that was a real responsibility, that had an arc throughout the course of the film. And I don't know, I have fond memories of Barry Levinson. He was lovely. Living in, we shot it in Maryland, in Baltimore. It was a pretty incredible experience. And for an 8-year-old, I think, to work with those, I don't know how aware I was of the significance of it, but I think, thinking back on it, I was aware of the fact that I had this responsibility amongst a lot of other adults. I was kind of one of the few kids in the film. So it definitely made an impression on me.
Well, look, before you go, Elijah, I have to ask you something. I can't let you escape without asking you about Yo Gabba Gabba, because my 3-year-old just loves you. I think you're on our TV like 8 times a day at the moment. They go through phases, and at the moment we're doing a lot of the Puppet Master, and I just want to know, what was that like working on that very, very off-the-wall show?
It was great. It's so incredible that show it's taken on a life of its own, and I in some ways get recognized for that just as much as anything else now, from parents and from children, which is such a delightful thing. I was basically approached. I had met one of the producers on that show before they actually signed their deal with Nickelodeon to make the show. Mm-hmm. And the producer met me, and we were talking, and he said, he described the show that they were all about to be creating, and he wanted me to be in the pilot, which was going to help serve ultimately them getting the deal with Nickelodeon. And I wasn't available to do it, so they got the deal. The show got made. And so in their first season, they came back and they said, "Well, we'd still really love to have you have you a part of this." So they asked about the Dancey Dance.
Mm-hmm.
That would be the way I would have a cameo. And they actually sent me a DVD of a variety of different dances that I could choose from. And so the Puppet Master was my choice.
Pretty good.
Yeah. And it was a blast. I think it's a really interesting show. It's a great show for adults. There aren't many children's shows that I think adults can enjoy as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the sort of impression that it left on me, was that parents could watch it and enjoy it on a different level than children could watch it. And, the fact that they've got Mark Mothersbaugh doing drawings that come to life, and Bismarck Marquis doing a human beatbox of the day, and all of these incredible bands that we all love playing songs in that world. It's such a great marriage of ideas. I love that show.
Me
it's
too.
Awesome.
Love it. All right. Well,
thanks so much for your time today. We feel like you need to get your tux all ready to roll for the Golden Globes.
Yeah.
So get prepared for that, and I hope you have a great time reuniting with all your friends and the cast and crew over in New Zealand.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure, guys.
Thanks, Max.